welcome back to the Camp Chronicles podcast. We can't believe we have 2 episodes left to film, and then we're all off to summer camp, which is crazy to say. In today's episode, we're going to talk through what we believe is how you can be a successful counsellor this summer. We've obviously got our own opinions, but we also went out and asked for some of yours as well. So these are kind of going to be our top tips that we could give you on how to be successful this summer.
Yeah. And bearing in mind, like, being a successful counsellor will look different to, like, everyone, especially if you ask, like, head staff what a good counsellor looks like compared to if you ask a camper what a good counsellor looks like. You'll probably get, like, totally different answers. And it also depends on, like, the camp you go to, what your values at your camp are and your rules are, and, like, your role that you're doing as well. But yeah, like you said, obviously, this is kind of our opinion on it. So hopefully it's kind of, like, gives a little bit of an insight into it anyways, because we've got 3 summers experience already.
The big thing about camp is you have to be open-minded. This is within the job, within the kids that you get, just every day really. You have to kind of just go with the flow of camp. That's the way that you're going to have the best summer possible. I know, like, at my camp, some people kind of get closed-minded on what age they want at camp. But if you do that, you're gonna block yourself off from having a great summer. So just stay open-minded, try new things, speak to everyone, just be yourself. Like, you're about to discover the best version that you could possibly be.
Yeah. And it's like the same as, like, if you're at home and there's, like, things you wouldn't usually do at home, like, I don't know, we have, like, mountain biking at camp. Just because you, like, don't really like riding a bike at home doesn't mean you should go to camp and be like, oh well, I don't like it at home, I'm not going to do it at camp. Like, give it a try. You might find you enjoy it because you're surrounded by your friends and the kids who are enjoying it as well. Like, things that you don't enjoy at home necessarily, you might find that you really enjoy at camp. So it is important to be open-minded, because it'll also help you as well, like, not even necessarily just in being a good counsellor for the kids, but it'll also help you grow if you, like, push yourself out of your comfort zone and do things that you're not comfortable with, like we've mentioned before, public speaking and dancing in front of lots of people.
Yeah, obviously they're 2 very big things at camp, and even if you don't have the confidence now to do that, I can guarantee in that first week towards the end of orientation, you will be ready to perform and put on a whole show for your campers. And that's the best thing about orientation, and it's so important to be open-minded in that as well, because like we said, this is where you are going to gain the confidence to take you on and be successful at camp.
Yeah, definitely. And then another big thing that'll definitely help you go far in being a good counsellor is, like, to be organized and prepared for the day, like, every day. And you don't have to be, like, the most organized person in the world, but you need to remember that when you're at camp, you've got, like, especially if you're a cabin counsellor, you've got a group of kids that you need to make sure they're all organized and prepared for the day and not just yourself. So, for example, if you're not reminding your, like, 9-year-old kids that they all need to be wearing their sneakers because they've got soccer and basketball that day, then if they turn up because they've had swim first period, let's say, and then they turn up at soccer and basketball and they've got their Crocs on and then they're not allowed to play and they're really upset, that's kind of on you because you didn't tell everyone, like, they need to be wearing them. And it is sometimes easy to forget, like, they are kids and that sometimes they do need reminded a few times to do things. So if you make sure that you're prepared and have an idea of what's happening during the day and are organised, you'll then set your kids up for success as well.
And also, something that I was terrible doing in my first and second summer was waking up on a morning. Like, I would essentially wake up at the same time as the kids, and it already set, like, things off on a bad tone, because I would be sat in bed talking with the kids while my co-counsellors were trying to get them up out of bed, and, like, that is one of the most difficult tasks to do on a morning. So last summer I set an alarm, I got up 10 minutes earlier than the kids. I was able to get dressed and I felt so much more ready for the day, and I found that it was so much easier to get the kids out of bed. It's nice to sit and have a little gossip with your campers on a morning before you get up, but the last thing you want to do, which is something that my bunk are often, is last at line up or last at, like, the divisional meeting on a morning. So just make sure you're setting that alarm, being organised on a morning, getting yourself up and ready, because as soon as you've had breakfast at my camp, it's straight to clean up. The kids are getting dressed and you need to be helping the kids clean up, get dressed, like making sure that you're reminding them to do things, because the likelihood is the older the kids get, the lazier they actually become, and they would much rather just relax and chill than actually be like sweeping up the bunk and cleaning it and making sure that themselves are organised.
Yeah, I can speak from experience. That is very true. Because we have like up at camp each second breakfast. So after flag, they'll have like cabin cleanup. But cabin cleanup is never cabin cleanup. It's actually try and get them out of bed and get them ready time, and then they go down to breakfast. They're not going to be cleaning up during cabin cleanup because they're actually just getting themselves ready. But then like also from like an activity counsellor point of view as well, not just necessarily cabin counsellor. When you're like planning sessions for the kids, you need to be organized, like make sure you know your schedule for the day, know what group of kids you've got coming next. If you're in, I don't know, like the not the kitchen, like I don't know what you call it at your camp, but we call it the nest at ours, where all the kids come and do like cooking and make pizzas and stuff like that. Like know what ingredients you're going to need sorted for the next group of kids. Make sure like you make sure everything's washed at the end so that you're prepared for the next group of kids that come in, so they can make sure you can make sure, sorry, that they have a good session with you.
I think everything just flows so much better at camp when you're organised. Like, it is a place where you do have to sort things out and just get things done on time when it's meant to happen, or else it just disrupts the whole day, and it can have like a ripple effect on the day if you are delayed by 5 minutes to one area. It's not just your morning you're impacting, like you said, it's then the specialty area that it's impacting. Then, you know, the kids are going to have, say, less time at the lake than what they'd want. So be organised. That is going to make you very successful this summer.
Definitely. Another one that I think is very important is to always lead by example. So like we've just talked obviously about the organisation. If you're organised, hopefully, touch wood, that'll then help the kids to want to be organised. And also like if you're cleaning your area, you're making your bed, you're making sure your cubbies are tidy, hopefully the kids will want to follow suit and make sure that theirs are. And also like never ask the kids to do things that you wouldn't be willing to do yourself. So if you're sitting there being like, oh, you need to sweep under your bed, you need to do all this, but under your bed's a mess, the kids are going to turn around and be like, well, you don't do it, so why am I going to do it? That sort of thing. I find if you just make sure you lead by example and not ask the kids to do any of the chores that you wouldn't do yourself, it makes it a lot easier.
Definitely. And also, I think it's really important to phrase the way you talk and ask the kids to do things. I think that massively impacts how you're going to be a successful counsellor this summer, and also how you are going to lead by example. So, for example, you're not going to say, Ellen, go and tidy the bathroom. I've asked you several times now and you're just not doing it. You say, Ellen, you're on bathroom duty today. Is there anything that I can help you with to make the job easier for you? So like just rephrasing the way that you say things, because honestly, from experience, the more you nag these children to do things, the less likely they're going to do it, or they'll more than likely do it with an attitude. Just make sure you're respectfully asking them to do things and also offering your assistance in case they do need a hand with things.
Yeah. And I don't really, well, I can't say this necessarily work too much with the older ones, because if they don't want to do it, they'll just not do it. But maybe with the younger ones, this might help. You can let me know if it has. But if you like praise the kids that are doing the right things, rather than like totally shunning the ones that aren't and being like, oh my God, Stephanie's area is so messy. Stephanie, I can't believe you never tidy up. Be like, oh, like, Susan, your area is so tidy, like well done. Like if you praise the kids that are doing good, then the other kids, especially younger kids, will probably want that same sort of like, is it gratification, is that the right word?
Yeah.
Yeah, that you're giving the other ones that are doing the right thing. So it, like you were saying, obviously it's just like the way you phrase things to try and make everything work in your favour.
Another quick tip that actually came to mind when you were talking about praising the campus is that it is very easy to only comment on when kids are doing the wrong things. So, for example, one particular kid is always last out of the bunk and isn't doing anything. It's so easy to just focus on that and say, like, you're always the last one out of the bunk. But, like, actually, there might be a reason as to why they're always the last one out of the bunk. Getting ready might stress them out, or, you know, they might not be able to find, like, the specific sneakers that they want to wear for this session. So, like, try not to always focus on the negative on the campus, because you've got to remember like how you feel when you just constantly would get negative feedback. You need to make sure that you are praising them for the good things that they are doing.
Yeah. That leads perfectly into the next point that we had on the list as well, which is about making sure that you are open to feedback. Like, if you camp is not like any other job that you'll probably have ever done. Like, similar in some ways, but it's not going to be the same. Like, even if you're a teacher or working at like kids all the time, like being at camp is like a totally different environment. And you might go in thinking, well, I don't think many people do go in with like a big brain, like I know everything sort of energy, especially if it's their first year. But just like don't go in with that. Totally. Like go in confident, being like, I can do this, but not in a I know everything already sort of way. And like be open to receiving feedback either from your peers, like your co-counselors, or like leadership, like or honestly, even from your kids. Like I will happily take feedback on board from my kids if it's constructive, anyways, I will.
I think, like you said, it's really important to have, and this is something that I want to put in place this year in my division specifically, is that two-way feedback. So, I think it's so important. So I say to Ellen, like, you've done a really good job. Let's discuss ways that we could do this, or how you feel about this. And then I want to sit down and I want Ellen to tell me, okay, well, like, I really appreciated X, Y, and Z, but, you know, we could maybe improve on evening activities, or I could maybe bring this to the table. Having that two-way feedback, so it's not just like one-sided, because I think it's very easy when you have a one-sided feedback session that you focus on the negative side of things, when actually the reason you're having these feedback sessions at camp is to help you improve and make your summer better.
Yeah, and it is easy as well to like go in like let's say like a one-to-one. I don't know if you used to it. We like as cabin counselors, we like halfway through the summer or a few weeks in have kind of like one-to-ones with leadership, which I'm actually going to have to be doing with people this year, which does stress me out a little bit. Actually thinking about the fact that I'm going to be the one sitting the counselors down and being like, this is what you're doing good. This is what we need to improve on. But like as much as I'll be the ones like that's trying to help them, like I also would expect that they turn to me and be like, oh well, actually, like my kids have said that they feel like you spend more time with other bunks. They would really like if you came and spent more time with our bunk if you can, and I would also enjoy that as well, because it would mean that it takes a bit of the pressure off me. For example, like I think sometimes it's hard to do, especially if it's like your first time, is to be like confident enough to give feedback as well as take it. Like it's easy enough to take it on board because you think like, oh well, these people have been here for longer than me, like they must know better. But that's not always the case. Like if you can bring experience from like your other parts of life or work or things that you've done and think like, actually if we implemented this would probably be better. Like I know it's hard to have that confidence to say things, but you should be able to hopefully have a good enough relationship with your like leadership team member that's in charge to be able to say those things. And that's another thing. I can create an environment this year that does that.
I think also being a successful counsellor and being a successful team is communication. Like, please communicate with each other instead of like getting annoyed at your co-counsellor and bottling it up and then loads of little things adding up. As soon as you can, just go and speak to your leadership staff member and just say, look, would it be possible for us to have a bunk conversation? Do you mind watching the kids for 10 minutes? Honestly, we appreciate this so much, is that you sit down with the bunk and say, these are things that I think we could improve on, and then have an open discussion and like give grace, don't hold grudges. I think that's an important thing this summer that I want to talk to my counsellors about, is that, I want you to be able to speak to each other comfortably and not hold it against each other, because you're not going to run a successful team if you don't do that. So speaking with each other and communicating and making sure that if there is something that's annoyed you, you don't then whisper to your other co-counsellor about your co-counsellor, because it just causes unnecessary tension and it makes people feel uncomfortable. So literally, if that happens, ask your division leader, your group leader, whoever is the leadership role in your division, ask them, do you mind if we have some time away just for like 5-10 minutes, have the discussion and air everything out? It's so much better than letting things build up, because one day it does just blow up, and I've had that my first summer, and it's just not a nice environment because the kids pick up on it.
Yeah. And I will say as well, like, I think for returning counsellors, it can be easy to forget, like, what it was like when you go to camp for your first time. So those frustrations that you have where you're like, oh, my co isn't doing this, my co isn't doing that, my co isn't doing this. Maybe if it's their first summer, they might not know that that's what's expected of them. Like with camp, it's very much like you pick it up as you go along, like you learn on the job with a lot of things. So they might not know straight away that I don't know, for example, if me and you were close and you're getting up on a morning, you're getting up out of bed straight away and you're going and waking all the kids up, and I'm just like getting up and starting to get myself ready because I can see that you're waking all the kids up. In my head I'm thinking, oh well, Summer's got that done, like she's doing fine, like that's okay. Whereas in your head you're thinking, oh my god, Ellen's so lazy, like she's not helping us get the kids up at all, like, and I'm having to do it all by myself. And if you just like sit and stew over that and like let it bubble over, he's just going to get more and more annoyed. Whereas all you have to do is come and say, like, Ellen, it'd be really helpful if on a morning you could help me get the kids up. And I'd be like, I am so sorry. I thought you were doing a great job at it. I thought you had it all under control. I'll help you next time. And then that is nice and easy, isn't it?
It's just understanding, like, and being able to give that guidance. Like, as a first timer, don't think that your co-counselors are being bossy. They
Mhm,
just want you to be able to learn the ropes as
mhm,
like fast as possible so that you're comfortable doing it. But
mhm,
also on the flip side of things, as a returner, like, don't be like, you go and do this, you go and do that. Like,
mhm,
remember that you are guiding these people that probably haven't ever worked at camp before, maybe haven't worked in this same environment, because as much as teachers think it's a very similar environment, trust me, I've worked in a school, I've done a residential trip with kids, it is nothing like camp.
mhm,
So just bear that in mind. Another important factor in being a successful counsellor is prioritising your kids. Just remember that you are there, you are working at camp for your kids. Obviously, you have the social side of things, which is so much fun, and it's great to get to know people from all over the world. That's not why you're there. Although it's a bonus, you're there for your kids. So prioritise them, get to know them, get to know what they like, what they don't
mhm,
like. It's very easy to, when you fail at the first hurdle, to just give up, but don't
mhm,
do it, because some conversations don't happen naturally and
mhm,
sometimes they can feel forced. But in a couple of weeks' time, you might have found something that you have a common interest in, and then try again. It is very much like a try and fail job. Sometimes it works first time, sometimes it works on the fifth time. So
mhm,
just make sure that you're prioritizing your kids, you're getting to know them, you get to know what they like. That's a really good thing about orientation when you're unpacking the trunks.
mhm.
You get to know the kids very well there, and just remember that you are there for the campers, not your friends.
Yeah. And the kids do, speaking from experience, pick up on it if you're a staff member and you're not as invested. I think, I don't know, again, I know every camp is kind of set up differently, but at my camp, you've usually got like two cabin counselors and then like 2 to 3, maybe even 4 activity counselors in a bunk. And I find that quite often, the in my experience anyways, it tends to be activity counselors feel like they can almost like sleuth off and disappear off a little bit more and not be as involved with the kids. But if you're like sleeping in that bunk with them, you're expected to be there on a morning and you're expected to be there after the last activity period. You are back with that bunk of kids, and the kids know that you're expected to be there and be with them. And if you're not, then they will notice. Like, I've had in previous years, like kids say to me, oh, so and so, this counselor like literally doesn't even know my name yet, and we're in like the second week of camp, or this, like, and that was in a bunk of what, like 12 kids, I think. Like, and for it to be the second week of camp and you not know fully the kids' names, or they're like, oh, they always get us confused with this person. Like, the kids are picking up on it, and then that means that if you are left in charge of those kids, they're not going to want to respond to you because they're going to feel like you don't care about them. So it is like really, really important that you do try and get to know your kids as much as possible and prioritize them.
And not only do they pick up on things, but they hear everything. So my big top tip this summer that I'm going to say to the counsellors is, I always find that And I've done it myself. You get so excited that it's going to be a night off, or it's your night off and a day off the next day, and you're getting really excited and you're talking about the outfits you're going to wear and what plans you're going to get to. But the kids are listening and they pick up on that. And what ends up happening is you make them kids feel like you would much rather be on your night off or your day off than be with them. And then it creates like just an awkward environment.
Another bit, I guess, it's kind of worked on like the kids picking up on things is at camp for the most part, especially sleepaway camp, like a lot of kids are like want to go home at some point, and 9 times out of 10, in fact like 9.9 times out of 10, like they're not going to be allowed to go home. Like their parents are not going to come and pick them up. Like they've sent them to camp for a reason. They're not just going to come and pick them up unless it's like obviously like a severe like medical issue or something, or some parents will. But if a kid's like expressing to you that they want to go home, like the worst thing you can do is be like, right, okay, well, we'll speak to this person, we'll try and make sure that you can go home. Because then like sometimes kids are saying they want to go home, but they don't really want to, like they just need that bit of reassurance. I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes kids like really do want to go home, but like your first like port of call should never be to try and like be like, all right, well, we'll find a way for you to go home. Because then all of a sudden, if you don't give them the reassurance, like, oh well, no, like camp's going to be great, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, then they're going to think, wait, my counsellor doesn't even want me to be here, like maybe I definitely need to go home then. And it's just realistically not going to happen. So that's always something to be aware of as well. Like just be mindful of what you say. And sometimes you think you're saying the right thing, but it might not always be. It's just like treading on eggshells sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, and with the homesickness thing as well, like you are very much that first instance probably is going to feel like a deer in the headlights. Like it is not a nice situation to be in because you sat there and you almost don't know what to say, but just let them vent, let them get it all out, let them cry, and then say, okay, let's set some goals for the day and let's reach them and go by the hour. And by the time they've probably halfway through the day, they'll have forgot that they were even homesick. It's usually downtime where these kids feel this way because they have time to think and they have time to feel. So try and kind of move their mindset away from the fact that they are feeling homesick and focus more on like the fun things that we have planned.
And it's not always, I think a lot of people think it's quite often just the little kids, but it's not. Like the older kids get it as well. Like I've always had like 15, 16-year-olds at camp, and like every summer I've had kids that want to go home. Some of them have ended up going home, but again, like medical things, and other things. But for the most part, like it's really sad to see, because it's like when they're older, it's almost like, like they really want to. It's not just like they're little and they're just crying because they miss their mum a little bit. Like they just genuinely don't like being at camp anymore. And they do grow out of it sometimes, I guess. But yeah, that's a whole rabbit hole. Maybe we don't need to go into right now.
But just ask for help. Like
Yeah.
that's how you're going to be successful, asking for help and going to somebody when you need guidance, because I've been guilty in the past of just bottling it all up and not going and not asking for help, and that's when you're going to start having all of these emotions and feelings and you're not going to be able to help your campers because you're feeling a similar way.
Yeah. And sometimes as well, just like kind of spinning off from what you're saying there about asking for help, is some kids just will not respond to you. Like some kids have got specific counsellors that they'll respond to, and they'll just not respond to you. Like this kid might be having a meltdown, and the only person that can help them calm down out of that meltdown might be like a counsellor that they had 3 years ago. And you might like take that at heart at first and be like, well, like, well, I'm the counsellor now, like, why can I not help you, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes that just happens. Like, don't take, like, offence to it. Like, don't take it personally. Like, go and see if you can help them by finding that counsellor that they had 3 years ago, if that counsellor doesn't have anything else going on at that moment, and see if, like, you can help get them to help the kid to calm down. Like, always make sure like you are asking for help, like you're saying, and also take the help. Like don't take personal offense if you can't sort a situation out yourself.
I think something you've just really hit the nail on the head there is this job, you cannot take things to heart. And I've been guilty of it. I did it my first summer, I did it my second summer. And part of the time, it made me miserable because I took things to heart. But just don't do it. It's not worth it. It won't get you anywhere doing it. And even if you are sensitive like me, I'm a sensitive person. Like, this is the perfect place to build that backbone and build that strength up and that resilience up, because the place where you probably need it the most.
That is very true. You do need a lot of resilience. I think it's easy to easy to kind of like get upset about things very quick when you're at camp. So having that like resilience, like you're saying, definitely does help. Um, Another like quick one that I kind of had down for this is like being the fun counselor. Like the kids always want the fun counselor, but you also do need to be responsible and like remember that you do need to still give them some sort of structure and like know when to say no. Um, because you don't want to be like breaking the rules for the kids because like just because they're asking you to and like they think it'll be funny or they want to do this. Like there's like certain rules in camp that are put in place for a reason. Like you can't just be breaking every rule. But yeah, like being the fun one and like be able to be silly and like have a bit of a mess around with them as well. But then also like if they are kind of stepping out of line and like pushing the boundaries a little bit too much or making others in the bunk upset, like still be able to say to them like, no, like look, this isn't actually okay right now.
And I think it's also important that you don't just let one counsellor be bad cop,
Hmm.
because it's not fair on them. It's not fair that you can always be the fun one and do all of the fun things. I had an experience, cadet summer, where my campers were just not listening to one of my core counsellors. Like,
Hmm.
it just wasn't working out what they were doing, and it was getting to a point where the kids were being louder than the counsellor was.
Hmm.
And I was in the bunk at the time, and I stepped up and I said, "Look, girls, come on, we need to listen to our counsellors. Get your pajamas on, get your teeth brushed, and then you can carry on doing what you're doing."
Hmm.
So instantly the kids were like, okay, went and did it. Then little did I know, at 11:30 p.m. when I came back to get into bed, because I thought the kids were going to be settled down, I came in and that same said counsellor was up telling stories, having jokes, laughing with the campers. So
Hmm.
who do the campers think a bad cop in that situation? Me,
Yeah.
who's not yet necessarily shouted at them, but have put them in line and told them what to do. And then that's because that counsellor didn't have any control of the situation, and then they got to be the fun counsellor, and I was known to be the bad counsellor, and then I had to repair what I'd done the previous night to
Hmm.
help her with my campers the next day, because they remembered that I was the person that yelled at them.
Yeah. It makes like an awkward dynamic, definitely. And then that, I mean, that point circles back to like communication as well, and also circles back to prioritizing your kids and like creating a relationship with them. If you can create a good relationship with them, then they should respect when you're trying to like hopefully get them to go to sleep. And again, I don't know if it's the same at every camp across the board, but for the most part, like you never want like your cabin counselors and your activity counselors that are in the bunk to be like bad cop. You let leadership be bad cop. So again, unfortunately, that's going to be me this year, going in and having to be bad cop, because you're like with those kids 24/7 in the bunk with them. You don't want to have a negative relationship with them. You want to try and keep the relationship as much as possible. Keep the relationship positive as much as possible. So sometimes you do kind of have to hand the baton over to leadership and be like, look, like they're just really not settling. Like I need you to come in and have a word with them. And then most of the time they'll be scared because they're like, oh my God, like Cindy's coming in to tell us off, or Emily's coming in to tell us off now. So yeah.
We briefly just mentioned obviously about resilience and patience, but James actually made like a really good point. We obviously all know who James is, Ellen's lovely partner.
Partner. It
And
makes me sound like I'm like 30. My partner.
but yeah, he made a really good point about like being resilient and patient. The kids will test you, like James said, but remember that they're young, they're impulsive, they say things, they do things without even thinking. But you're there to guide them and help them learn the ways of life.
And again, this comes with the patient side of things. I feel like this is a given and nobody would really do it, but like you should never get to the point where you're losing your temper and you're like lashing out at the kids. And like we said, there will some kids will test your patience more than others. Like it might just be that you've had a really long, hard day and this kid just might be like just really pushing it a tiny little bit too much. But if that's the case, like you need to take a step back and remove yourself from the situation and like calm down, because you should never ever ever get to the point where you're like screaming and shouting and bawling at the kids and hitting them or anything like that. Like that is a big no. Never hit the kids. And again, I feel like that's a given. Nobody would ever think of doing that. But You definitely shouldn't. So yeah, when they are testing your patience, you just need to take a step back, have a little breather, and just remember they are kids. And sometimes they just don't realise that what they're doing is necessarily bad or that they shouldn't be doing it. They're just doing it because they think it's funny.
I think as well, like the thing about camp and campers is that sometimes it can be very difficult to build a relationship, but very easy to break the relationship. So you just really have to think about what you're doing and what you're saying, and it goes back to the way that you phrase things with your campers. Just make sure you're thinking before you're speaking, because the last thing you want to do is ruin that relationship, because it's very hard to repair. And kind of once one camper picks up on it, the other campers do too. So just never raise your voice. That's the difference, I think, between being a teacher and being a camp counsellor, is that as a teacher, you're not there to be their friends and you're there to like keep the kids in line. Whereas as a camp counsellor, although you're not there to be their friends, you're there to be like supportive and their role model. And it's a very different environment where we don't tell people off and we don't give consequences unless it's something really bad. But like we said earlier on, the people that are going to give consequences is leadership staff, probably is your head counsellors, even the people that own your camp. They're going to be the people that kind of do that. And if you think it ever gets to that point, then you have to go to them immediately. You don't handle that situation yourself, because the likelihood is that you're going to end up worse off than they are in the situation if you handle it.
Yeah, definitely agree with everything there. So hopefully everybody takes all of that into consideration. And again, when we're asked on Instagram, we had two points were covered, and basically the exact same things were said by like 4 different people. Morgan and Aaron both said you need to let go of your ego and like don't be embarrassed when you're at camp. And I think this is like all across the board. Like quite often people go into camp and think like, oh well, like the little kids always want you to be silly, and like the older kids like maybe not so much, but like the older kids like want to be silly just as much as the younger kids, just in different ways. And yeah, you do have to like let go of your ego and not be like, oh, I'm not doing that because that's not very cool, or oh, like I'm so embarrassed, like I can't go on stage and dance. If everybody's doing it, you'll be more embarrassed when you're the only person that's not doing it.
Yeah, that is the camp environment. You have to let go of that ego. You're right. It's so important to do, and it's very easy during orientation to be like, oh, why is everybody up dancing? I'm not used to doing this. It is very overwhelming. But you'll stick out like a sore thumb. Orientation is the chance for you, like we've said, to build up on this confidence and then go into camp without this huge ego and getting embarrassed. I remember last summer I was down doing a TikTok talent show on like the second night of camp, and one of the guys came down from his bunk because he'd heard that that's where we were, and he took a video of me on stage with my co-counselors, like singing a song. We were singing karaoke while the kids were like doing the talent show, like getting prepared for it. He took a video of me and captioned it ick, and he thought that was funny, and immediately I was like embarrassed, and then I thought, actually wait, no, why am I embarrassed for doing my job, for having fun? And like that's what's important, is that camp is a judge-free zone, and people like that aren't the type of people that fit in well at camp. People at camp shouldn't be trying to embarrass you. And in that moment, it was important for me to be resilient and not get embarrassed and actually have fun. And I had a great time. I mean, I can't sing for like Toffee. I sound like a drowning cat. But I had fun, and that was the most important thing.
Yeah. And like we're saying about with all like the dancing and stuff like that, like no one wants you to be uncomfortable. And I know like being in that environment can be uncomfortable for a lot of people. Like if you are not comfortable, like for example, at my camp during orientation, like literally I pretty much as soon as like the first and second arrival group of staff come to camp, like every mealtime we'll play like the typical dining room songs that will play during the kids' meal times, and everybody's up and dancing on the table and learning the dances. And like if you aren't comfortable getting up and doing that straight away, like that's okay. Like nobody's gonna force you to get up if you're uncomfortable doing it. But also you'll kind of just come to learn that because everybody's getting up and doing it. You've got no reason to feel uncomfortable doing it. Like I cannot dance for the life of us. Like I've got no rhythm, like at all. Like I really don't. But the dances that we're doing the dining table are like in the dining hall, like Baby Shark and like Cotton Eye Joe, like they're not like hard dancers, by the way, just not to scare anyone. They're easy to pick up, and like you don't have to like look good when you're doing it. As long as you're doing it and like everybody sees that you're having fun, that's the main thing.
And
Yeah.
that's what me and Joshua said as well. Get involved as much as possible, whether that's with the dancers, whether that's
Mhm.
with your activity periods, whether that's with being inside of the bunk and helping out and cleaning. Like, just get involved as much as possible. Because honestly, when I tell you, these 7 weeks or however long you're there, because I know some camps are longer, some camps are shorter, like, it's over before you know it. And you will regret not doing all of the things you wished you did. So just
Mhm.
make sure you're throwing yourself out there, getting involved in everything, and really giving it your all, because you don't know when your last summer is going to be for a returning counsellor. You don't know whether
Mhm.
you're just going to do one summer. Like, just get involved with everything.
Yeah. I'd hate to like get to the end of camp and be like, oh God, I wish I'd done that. Like I was given the chance to do this and I didn't do it, and I wish I had, or like I wish I'd just like had got up and like took part in the talent show and did a stupid dance with my friends because it's funny. Like you don't want to feel like that. So yeah, definitely get involved in absolutely everything. So like I said at the beginning, like don't take this as gospel. Every camp will be different, and like what one person thinks, what will make one person have a successful summer might be slightly different to the next, but like those are some of obviously the big tips that we have picked up along the way. So hopefully you're finding this beneficial, whether you're sitting at home getting ready to go to camp, whether you're thinking for applying for next year, or whether you're currently on the plane and you are literally flying to camp right now. Hopefully you can kind of take something from this episode. I feel like it's been quite a insightful one. But yeah, we have got one episode left after this, so that's very soon. And then we'll be done and we'll both be off to camp. Obviously, Summer, you're already on Long Island. She's
I
already
am.
outside. And I will be flying out on the 16th of June, so it's not long to go for me either. But we hope you have all enjoyed this episode, and we'll see you next week for the final one.